Hello, welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. I am your host, Chloe Daniels, better known as Chloe Bear Money Coach on the internet. And this is our quick tip episode. I sounds like I just said tit. I meant, sorry, I'm like fixing my hair, looking at myself. I'm like, wow, Chloe, you could really tell it's not a wash day for the hair. But hi, this is our quick tip episode where we dive into kind of a little Chloe Bear life update, and then we give you guys a quick tip that you could take away for yourself. So today we're going to talk a little bit about credit card debt and ways not to pay off credit card debt, or like the alternative ways that I don't usually recommend people pay off credit card debt. And some of them are probably a little controversial, but we'll kind of talk about how not to pay off your credit card debt in today's episode. So first, a little life update. I am trying to speak in a way that doesn't hurt my throat because I think I told you guys in my last episode, my last quick tip episode, that I started doing jujitsu and I freaking love it. I think I might even take a break from CrossFit to do more jujitsu and potentially also take up boxing. But I am covered in bruises because I bruise like a freaking banana, and I got choked many times last night, which is such a ridiculous thing to say out loud. And even when I was working with this person who ended up being a world champion in her division, I was learning how to choke better. And so to learn how to choke better, she was showing me how to choke on me. And the whole move we were learning last night was a choke based thing. And oh my God, she choked me so hard that my throat is sore today. It feels like I have a cold, even though I know I don't. It's just from getting choked. And what a way to start off this podcast, me telling you guys about my choking experience. It's so funny too, because it's you would think me getting my ass kicked would not be fun. And I'm also the type of person who doesn't usually like things that I'm not good at. And I'm not good at jujitsu, but I'm having a blast. I love it so much. I can't wait to go back. And my body is Chloe, you need to take it slow because I'm so sore today. I'm covered in bruises. My throat hurts, but I'm still going to go tonight because my friend, who I made a friend at the San Diego meetup, my friend and I are going to go to jiu-jitsu tonight for the women's only class. So I'm oh, well, I'm not going to not go. So that's happening tonight. And where was I going with this? I'm trying to speak in a way that doesn't hurt my throat, which is not easy because I am a loud person and I feel I have to swallow more. I'm damn, jujitsu is intense, but I freaking love it. But I'm not kidding you guys. My arm looks I look like a leper. These bruises they're just they look like big fingerprints. I look like I'm being hurt, that I'm in a bad situation. I'm not. I am loving it. I'm in jujitsu. So yeah, that's where I'm at today. And it also helps. I do think that I need therapy for anger management, to be totally honest. Cause some things, I think my anger, this is going to sound so bad. I think as a white woman, I have been socialized to think that I am important, and I have internalized that to the point where every inconvenience feels like a slight against me. And even though I don't usually voice that to people or the people who I view are slighting me, the internal process is still very real for me, and it'll piss me off. For even if somebody's cutting me off in traffic, I have to literally say to myself, in order to not be mad, you are not better than anybody else. You are not more important than anybody else. You are not better than anybody else. I literally have to tell that. And I know that's fucked up. I never act on those thoughts, but it still affects me, and I don't want it to affect me anymore. And I realize the root of it is this belief somewhere deep inside me that I'm more important than everybody else. And I know I'm not. The logical part of me is no, you freaking aren't. But there's this deep rooted belief that I'm well, I'm better than everyone. And I think when we think about Karens and stuff like that, isn't that really what the root is? This Karen thinks it's okay to act inappropriately, to act entitled, to demand respect or demand more than respect or demand whatever it is, this unreasonable thing. I'm trying to think of the last situation that I saw a Karen on TikTok, which I try to stop watching that stuff because it's not good for my mental health, even though it's there's something satisfying about watching a Karen go off and go crazy and like to be filmed and like that's the kind I'm talking about. It's not satisfying to see somebody being abused by a Karen. It's satisfying to see like a Karen getting what is like deserved or being held accountable. And when I think about those videos, it's at the root of it. The reason this person feels empowered and emboldened to act that way is because they think that they are better than everybody else. They think that they are more deserving of everyone else. They think they're more entitled than everybody else. I mean, that is essentially white privilege in a nutshell, right? So I think, unfortunately, because I didn't even understand privilege and all of that until my late 20s, there's still a lot of rewiring that needs to happen in my brain of that, like that core thought that then causes me to go and get fucking angry over the dumbest inconveniences. And like, to be fair, anger in some situation makes sense. Anger in some situation is absolutely like valid, something that like the situation renders. Like, for example, here's my rage for today. I'm not even sure if I should go into this. I have a tax team. Some of you know who that tax team is. I'm not going to call them out because I don't want to get in trouble. But my tax team is like a full service team. It's like a subscription fee where I pay about $300 a month. And they handle all my bookkeeping. They handle all my taxes. They give me like quarterly estimates. They do all that. But their communication is horrible, like horrible beyond horrible. And every time I reach out and ask a question that I need a tax expert opinion on, I get mansplained to so hard that I want to pull my hair out. So like, for example, not that long ago, I had asked my accountant, or at least the contact at this place, hey, I see my quarterly estimates for taxes. What, if I contribute to my solo 401k, how much can I reduce that? Like if I put in $5,000 to my solo 401k, how much is that going to reduce my estimates? What about if I put $10,000 into my solo 401k, how much is that going to reduce my estimates? And what do I get back in response? I get back a lengthy explanation and a link to a blog post about what a solo 401k is. Mind you, at no point in my message to this person did I ask, what's a solo 401k? I obviously know what a solo 401k. I teach people what solo 401ks are. What I was asking for was very specific numbers that are estimates. They had already given me like my quarterly estimates. I wanted to know, okay, if I contribute pre-tax to my solo 401k, how can I reduce my estimates? And so we had like 3 or 4 exchanges until I finally got the information I needed. It took forever. And I was like, I'm just going to chalk it up to like him not understanding me. I'm not going to freak out about it. I'm just going to like continue to email this person, even though clearly after 2 emails, we should have hopped on a freaking phone call or something, but I don't like taking phone calls, and he never suggested it. All right. Now, fast forward to now, I'm like, all right, we're a little cash strapped in Clobear headquarters with the move to San Diego and all the stuff that's going on. I'm like, I'm going to do safe harbor. Like, I'm going to only pay. Safe harbor rule is essentially that if you're a business owner and you're making your estimated taxes, as long as you are paying either 90% of what you owe or 110% if you're above $150,000 AGI, or 100% if you're below that of your tax payments from last year, you will not be penalized for underpaying your estimated taxes. That's the rule. So you guys can hear Cash in the background singing to his people. So I already understand that rule. I just explained that rule to you. I reach out. I say, hey, I'd like to use a safe harbor. Can you tell me if I've already met the minimum requirements for this year and what my estimates for, like, what do I need to pay in quarter 3 and quarter 4 in order to avoid any kind of underpayment penalty? And what does this motherfucker do? He sends me a screenshot from H&R Block explaining the safe harbor rule. Let me also tell you guys, this is not HR Block. That's embarrassing that an entire tax team decides to quote and send a screenshot from HR Block, which doesn't answer my question, but HR Block is like, that's not who you want doing your business taxes. Like, sure, they're fine for the average person who's doing their taxes, but it's like, HR Block, really? You're gonna screenshot you guys are supposed to be better than HR Block. And there's nothing against HR Block. I don't personally use them. I've never used them. They're fine. They're totally fine, but I have no opinion on them. So anyway, this goes back and forth multiple times when I even like list out, here's what I need from you. And then at some point he says like, well, I can't give you estimates. I'm like, what do you mean you can't give me estimates? I already have estimates from the tax return. I am just confirming with you that I'm good to go, that I'm not going to end up paying any penalties based off of these amounts. Like I'm just dotting my I's and crossing my T's. That's it. And so we go back and forth, back and forth. And finally, like, I'm just like, this is not clear to me. Like, you are not answering my question. And he responds with, and I even say in my last email, and I hate saying I'm sorry because I didn't do anything wrong. But at the end of the email, to be polite, I say, I'm sorry for all the questions. I just want to make sure we are on the same page. And it is clear to me that I'm like not going to pay any penalties. And right now it's not clear to me. So, and to be fair, this person is giving me like conflicting information as we're continuing on this stupid email exchange. His last email to me last night was him quoting his previous email. You heard me right. You heard me right. He quoted it, even put quotes around it, his previous email. And that was it. And didn't even answer the other questions that I had. So I responded and I said, thanks. I understand that part. I am still not getting an answer. You're still not giving me an answer on what are my estimates for the rest of the year to make sure I'm okay. And you're not confirming the amounts that I confirmed in the previous email. You guys can hear me get so heated right now. And I was like, it is very condescending that you would quote your previous email when I am asking you honest questions and you still have not answered those questions. Like, if you have an issue with me asking these questions, I would like to be assigned to someone else at the company. But also, it should not take this type of email exchange to get this simple fucking question answered. So he comes back later on. Clearly, somebody was like, you better apologize. And I reached out to my brand contact too. And I was like, hey, FYI, this is how I am being treated at this company. I am not going to continue working with this company if I have to continue working with this person. And honestly, I'm probably going to look for a new tax team anyway, because like this shit is insane. This shit is insane. And so anyway, he like connects me to his colleague. Now I have a call on freaking Monday. I'm just so annoyed by that. But I think in that scenario, the annoyance isn't coming from this like root belief of like, I'm better than everybody else and I deserve this. The annoyance is coming from not getting my answers from my tax team, who I pay to get answers from, and that I'm being talked down to, that I'm being condescended to, that I'm being like talked to like a child who doesn't understand the safe harbor rule, when I am pretty sure this person must just not understand the safe harbor rule. And that's why they're not giving me an answer. And they've been giving me conflicting information. So anyway, that's just an example. I don't think that is an example of me thinking I'm better than everyone else. Because even when I check myself and I'm like, you're not better than this person, you are not more important than this person, it doesn't make me less angry. Because most of the time, if I think that is what's happening here, it'll make me check myself. This time I'm like, it's so fucking rude. It's so condescending. Like, why would I continue to work with you if this is how I'm being treated? Like, for asking questions. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of that. I can't tell right now. I hate being mansplained to. I hate being talked to in a condescending way. And I think that's why a lot of people, and to be fair, to bring this back to finances, even though this is about finances because we're talking about taxes, I think that's why so many of us have issues with like financial advisors or CPAs or like just people who are in expertise areas anyway. It's so rare that we find somebody who is not condescending because of our lack of knowledge about XYZ. And like in this situation, I have knowledge. That's the thing. That's what also blows my mind is like, I'm not even asking you guys to do anything from scratch. I'm just asking you to confirm what I have already got for you. It's hard, I think, for people who have like an area of expertise like financial advisors. Some of them do not have areas of expertise and are parading around as if they do, but it is hard when you are deep into the weeds and have the knowledge that you need to have to break it down and like understand what somebody is asking for. And I think a lot of us have experienced that like condescending an attitude of like, well, you're an idiot for not knowing this. It's like, no, I hired you because I don't want to be the expert on this. I hired you because I am not at all interested in being my own tax expert. Like, I'm not. And even then, I have way more knowledge than the average person when it comes to these things, and I'm still being condescended to. And like, I don't know if condescended to is a word, but you guys catch my drift. So, anyway, that's a really long rant just to say I think I probably need some anger management therapy. But I'm getting better. I think the one thought of you're not better than everyone else, you're not more important than somebody is helpful just for like an ego check. Because I do think anger does come from ego a lot of times. So anyway, that's my life update, I guess. Jiu-jitsu, getting choked. Logan has her new beanbag chair. I ordered her a beanbag chair because she loved the one that was at my parents' place. I was trying to budget my money in, so we waited until June, and now she has it. And yeah, so let's get to the money tip this week. Now, the thing that made me think of let's talk about ways not to pay off credit card debt is because I was reading again, shout out to Morning Scoop from the Morning Brew. This is not sponsored, but hey, if you guys are listening, I would be happy to get sponsored by you. But the Money Scoop is one of the newsletters that I subscribe to and try to read as much as possible because I really just enjoy reading it. And it's a money one, but it's a fun money one. And one of the topics from the Money Scoop that came out yesterday, which as I'm recording this is June 1st, was talking about how people, specifically millennials and Gen Zers, are ending friendships because of the cost of weddings. So Credit Karma actually did a study and they found that 23% of millennials and Gen Zers have lost friends and family over the financial cost associated with a wedding or with attending a wedding or wedding related event. That's a lot. That's a quarter of people who have cut financial ties because of financial, or not cut familial and friend ties because of money. And of that group of people, 42% of the respondents said that the reason that they cut connected ties is because it stemmed from this feeling of feeling obligated to attend weddings that they can't afford, which I think is so interesting because it's like, yeah, you absolutely should not go to a wedding if you cannot afford a wedding, and you should be honest about that. I think the key is usually vulnerability, is being able to say, I would love to come to your wedding. I think that would be wonderful. However, I cannot afford it. I cannot go into credit card debt for this wedding. I'm so happy for you. I would love to celebrate you, but it's just out of my budget. I want nothing more than to, say congratulations and be there for your big day. But I have to protect my own financial peace as well and my own financial security as well. And I think some people are receptive to hearing that and some people probably aren't. So I wonder too, though, if it's just like people find it easier to cut off that like friendship tie rather than to have that vulnerable and honest conversation. Or on the flip side, I also wonder, is it people realizing like, wow, I'm not willing to spend this kind of money on this person. So I guess they're really not in like my core friend group, or they're not that important to me. So I think there's probably like a share between both of those. But I thought that was really interesting. And then another interesting stat from it was that 31% of Gen Z and millennials have regretted attending a wedding or wedding related event because the cost was more than they could afford. So that's what made me think like, let's talk about credit card debt, because a lot of us are going to weddings this summer. We've got a lot of stuff going on. I feel like summer is like prime time for people to go into debt, right? Because there's so many fun things and we're like, heck yes, I want to do it all. So I have already had some episodes talking a little bit of just like how to pay off debt, but credit card debt is a little bit unique because there are so many of these like other alternative ways to pay off debt that people like to talk about. And I think that we need to really break those down, because some of those alternatives, like options, are okay. Some of those are not okay and are something that we want to avoid as best as humanly possible. So we're going to talk about how to not pay off your credit card debt. So first one, we're going to talk about zero balance transfer cards. Okay. Well, I got to give an asterisk here because sure, these can be great tools if you have already addressed the problem or the reason that you went into credit card debt in the first place. These can also be great tools if you are like using it for a flip property, you're using it for a project that's going to then bring you in more money, and you need it kind of as like this 0% loan, and you have nailed down to a T the time frame, the payments you have to make in order to pay it off within the time frame that is allowed. Because the last thing we want to do with zero balance transfer credit cards is that we let it go beyond the promotional period. So let me back up for a second. There are a lot of zero balance transfer credit cards out there that will allow you to take the balance of one credit card and transfer it over to a zero balance. Then you get a zero balance for 12 to 18 months. And in that time, it's kind of like a race. You've got to pay off your credit card debt in that 12 to 18 months so that then when the interest rate starts up again, you're not paying any interest. So it's essentially like getting a free loan. It is dangerous though, because once that free loan period or that credit free interest rate or the 0% interest rate period is over, these cards then shoot up to extreme levels of interest. We're talking about some of the highest levels of credit card interest rates that I have seen, like above 25%, above even 27%, which is really atrocious. So a lot of times when you do a balance transfer from one credit card to another, they will charge you a one-time fee. Maybe it's like between 3 and 8%, so that it's like, okay, we're going to charge you a fee. It's going to get added to your balance. And then after you're done, you will it'll go up to X interest rate for the whole balance. So the only time a zero balance transfer credit card is an option is if you already have good credit. So a lot of people who are paying off credit card debt or who are in credit card debt, this may not be an option for them. So they may have to look at like, okay, well, I don't have good credit, so I don't apply. Or I don't qualify. And if I do qualify or my credit's only so, I may get charged a higher initial transfer fee. So that's kind of like only an option, like I said, if you do have decent credit. Now, like I said, you really need to make sure that if you are using a zero balance credit card transfer fee, you are paying it off within the promotional period, because if you do not, it is going to be a significantly higher interest rate than what it would have been had you just gone or stayed with the interest rate that you're at right now. The other side is that if you're using it as a transfer card, that frees up the other card, right? So you really have to ask yourself, have I addressed the behaviors that got me into credit card debt in the first place? Because if I haven't, I'm basically opening up the opportunity for me to go further into debt by clearing out that balance. So that's why we want to be very careful with a tool like this. It seems like such a win-win, seems like such a benefit, but you have to know for sure that you are, one, not going to rack up credit card debt elsewhere on that new card that has now been freed up. And two, you are paying it off in that promotional period, because tell you what, paying off a credit card with a 30% interest rate is going to be really difficult. So that's number one, something we generally want to avoid unless we have an airtight plan on how we're going to pay that off truly and completely. And even then, I recommend like being on a budget for months before you do a 0% APR credit card so that you feel like you do actually have control over your dollars. Okay. So you got to like be sharpening that money muscle to make sure like, okay, can I handle this? Am I going to be able to do this? Because you don't want to go in there being like, oh yeah, I will suddenly, as soon as I do that 0% APR transfer fee or card, suddenly I'm going to have the skills to pay this off. Like that's going to change everything, because we know it doesn't work that way. It's not like all of a sudden you do one thing differently and suddenly you're a completely different person. It's like that quote or that like viral meme tweet where they're like, yeah, every single goal that I have requires me to be a completely different person than I have proven to be for the last 27 years. So know thyself. Knowing thyself is very important. Okay, the next thing that I would not do in most situations is a debt consolidation loan. And here's why. So a debt consolidation loan, for like basics here, is an option if you have, again, good to excellent credit. They're also known as personal loans, and essentially you get them from like an online lender or a credit union if you have several debts and you want to consolidate them all into one. If you do have higher interest rates and things along those lines, it can lower your interest rates. It can also lower your monthly payment. So in that way, it can be a really good thing, especially if you just feel like you're drowning. So what's also nice about it is that with a debt consolidation loan, you can find out if you qualify for a better interest rate and a lower payment, or a combination of either one of those, within minutes online. And they're not going to pull your credit report. Like you're not going to have a hard inquiry, which would lower your credit score until you accept a loan. So you can go find out your rates right now. And I recommend doing that from time to time just to see like, okay, hey, am I paying too much in interest on my student loans or whatever else you've got going on, your credit card debt or your car loan or whatever. So the issue that we run into is the same issue of the 0% APR transfer card is that suddenly when you do that, you are freeing up credit cards. So if you free up a credit card and you have not addressed the behaviors that got you into credit card debt in the first place, same situation where we could be in a worse situation than we were when we began. So that's why, again, I'm like, make sure you're on a budget before you're doing this. Make sure you've successfully stuck to that budget for at least 3 to 6 months. And then if you're like, all right, I've done this, I feel confident in my money management skills. Now I'm going to see if I can get a private loan or a personal loan to see if I can get a lower interest rate, clear up those credit cards, only have one payment, and pay this debt off sooner. So again, you've got to know thyself. Now, the flip side, another reason that I generally do not recommend debt consolidation loans, except for in very slim circumstances, is that often if you have bad credit, a personal loan will be offered to you, but it will be secured. And what that means is credit card debt is unsecured. So credit card debt, if you can't pay off your credit card, nobody's going to come and take your house. Nobody's going to come and steal your car. They can't take anything from you. Okay. They're not going to come back and take all the stuff you bought. They're not going to, nothing's going to happen except for you're going to hurt your credit score and you may have to go into bankruptcy someday. That's like worst case scenario, but you're still not losing your home. You're still not losing your assets. So that's unsecured debt. Essentially, your debt is not tied to an asset like our homes. Our homes are secured debt. What that means is that if you don't pay your mortgage, the bank can foreclose you. You can lose your home. If you don't pay your car loan, they can come and take your car. That's a secured loan. So the value of the car is really what's holding that loan down so that if you don't pay it, well, we're going to repo that car. Okay. We do not want to exchange unsecured debt, AKA the kind of debt where we're not going to lose anything except for our credit score. And we're not even going to lose it. We're just going to damage it, which is, I'm not saying that lightly. Like, yes, that is a big deal. However, a bigger deal is to damage our credit score and lose our home, which is what like which is what a secured loan is. So that's in that situation. That's what I want you to be aware of. We really never, in almost no circumstance ever, want to take unsecured credit card debt for a secured debt consolidation loan. Okay. And that's why we will also be talking about home refinancing. So I am not a fan of refinancing your home in order to pay off credit card debt. This is something that is probably the most controversial take on this podcast because a lot of debt-free folks will say, why wouldn't you? You know, you've already got a mortgage. If you refinance your home and you get a lower interest rate and you just loop that into your home loan payment every month and you clear out that credit card debt, you're saving a ton of money on interest. And yes, that is true. But what I just said, we are swapping unsecured credit card debt for secured credit card debt. And you're increasing your mortgage by whatever amount that you took out the loan for. And if you cannot pay it, it's no longer just your credit score that's on the line, is also your security in the form of your home. So that's why most of the time, I would never recommend a home refinance for credit card debt. A home refinance for something like improving your home or making improvements that will increase the value of your home or things along those lines, that's a different story. But when we're talking about paying off credit card debt, my parents have done it 2 or 3 times where they have refinanced their home to pay off credit card debt. They had 5 kids. Money was always tight. And for a while, my mom couldn't work because of her health issues. And that, my mom has said many times, is one of her biggest regrets, because had they not refinanced, they would have a paid off home right now. And when you're getting close to retirement age, having that paid off home becomes more and more important, because if we could not have any housing costs, or our only housing costs is like property taxes and home insurance, that's a pretty big relief. That means that we don't need to have nearly as much saved for retirement in order to live our life at the same level that we lived during our earning years. So yeah, like I said, a lot of people don't agree with me on that in the personal finance space, but I think that it's just everything is based off of your own risk preferences, right? And I don't ever want you to risk your home, your well being, just to pay off debt. There are other solutions. There are so many other solutions that I would address before refinancing a home or getting a secured personal loan. That's like a last resort thing. And even then, I don't even know if I would do it. So just depends. Everybody's situation is different. But I hope that helps in giving you perspective if you've been thinking about taking up a personal loan. I also do not like, and we kind of talked about this in the last or one of the most recent episodes about, I also am not a fan of taking out of our 401k or taking out of, your investments that are for retirement to pay off your credit card debt. I'm not a big fan of that either, but we've talked about that before. So I will link that episode in the show notes. Now, we talked about like in order for you to even consider something like a 0% transfer or a personal loan, I would make sure that you've been on a budget for multiple months and you've been successfully doing it for multiple months so that you can go in knowing if I do this, I feel confident I'll be able to manage it. I feel confident I will be able to pay this off within the time frame. That's okay. You can do that. But you need to have the data to show, like, yeah, I'm not banking on me changing overnight. I'm showing that I have done this for months and months and I have the skill set now. So now I'm ready to reduce my interest rate with a secured or not a secured loan, with a personal loan and get to paying off this credit card debt. So if you are like, cool, let me get on a budget, head over to moneyrightguide.com where we have our free guide that includes a budgeting template, 2 different budgeting templates, really, and video tutorials on how to use those, how to update those. And it's like a 30-page guide. So it's got a lot of other tips in there as well. But it has the budgeting template that I have used since 2018. It's not exciting, it's not sexy, but it's very easy to use. So check that out at moneyrightguide.com. And I think that's all I got for you guys today. So I'll leave links to a blog post about how to pay off credit card debt that goes even further into details about what we're talking about here. So check that out. I'll leave a link to the Credit Karma survey about weddings as well, because I think it's interesting. So appreciate you all. And I hope you have a great week. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Money Bear podcast. If you've made it this far, do us a favor, take 2 seconds, rate, review, and subscribe. It seriously means the world to me. And if you just take a sec to do that, I will appreciate you endlessly. And if you do, let me know on Instagram and I'll thank you personally. So, got that. And of course, since we were talking about anything financial on this show, please note that nothing on this show is intended as financial advice. I don't know you, unfortunately. And because of that, I cannot tell you what to do with your money. You got to work with a financial professional who knows your situation, who is preferably a fiduciary. And keep in mind that everything that we talk about on this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It's all my opinion. So, there's that. If you want to see our full terms and conditions, head on over to the show notes. And while you're there, we've got free resources for you to get started on your money journey down in the show notes as well, including a free guide to help you with your budgeting templates and budgeting tutorials and investing 101, understanding the different accounts that are out there. All that good stuff is inside of my free guide, which is also available at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. And if you're ready to take our relationship to the next level, I am also hosting a monthly investing class. And that investing class, you can find the times we're offering it this month at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/webinar. That link is in the show notes as well. And that's where you have the chance to meet me live and ask those money questions live. It's a good time. We've had over 20,000 people as of recording this join or register. And yeah, it's always nice to meet you guys. So I hope to see you there. Again, all that is available down in the show notes. So thank you again for coming and listening. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.